Hi, Tom again with another short video for our series in Photoshop for photographers. And I've got a stock image here, a fairly small one, it's only 1.82 megs, so not a great resolution, but it's probably a reasonable one to show a couple of examples of how to make selections. So this is all about various ways of making selections and why you would choose some over others for various reasons. Now, the quickest way to make a selection in this case would be to use what they call the Magic Wand tool, and so I'll go to where the quick selection tool is and hold down the mouse on that, and hiding under that is the Magic Wand tool. And if the Magic Wand tool here is set to a tolerance of 32, and it's set to contiguous and to anti-alias. Now, contiguous means it's going to select areas that are adjacent to one another. So, for example, if I click on this kind of light white area, it won't pick up the light whites down here because it's not joined onto it. And I can, the anti-aliasing is something I should do in another video, but so it's not quite what we want to look at just yet. And I can change all these other options here for how the selections are going to work, but I'll just deselect that by going Control D on the PC, and it's Command D on the Mac. And if I want to start off with say I wanted to select the hat for some reason, I can click on there and it'll pick up that much of the hat with a tolerance of 32. I'll just deselect. If I up the tolerance to 64, doubling it, and then click in the middle of the hat, it'll pick up a bit more of the hat. And then if I go again to 128, I'll just deselect first and click in the middle of the hat. You can see it's almost got all of it, but there are bits outside the range still. So what that range is, I'll just reset that to 32. What the range is 16 shades either side of wherever you click. So it's in a range of 32 shades. So if I click in the middle again with the 32 and then hold down my Shift key, I could then go around and pick up the rest of the hat with that technique. And it's not a bad way to do it if you've got something where the color is fairly similar over all the image as it is in this case. And you can see it would fairly quickly, I could get a reasonable kind of a selection of this hat and then go and touch up with the lasso as I've showed you on a number of occasions before. So that's just holding down the Shift key and clicking and adding to the selection continuously every time I click. And there's some little dags here and there. And so if I wanted to prove that I'd done that, I can go to a hue saturation adjustment layer and change the color of the hat to blue, for example. And you can see it probably still needs a bit of adjustment there. But so I'll just undo that. I'll step back a bit, and I'll deselect that. And another way, still with the Magic Wand tool, another way might be I'll leave it set to 32, and if I click in the white area, of course, then all I would need to do would be to deselect the boots if it was the hat I wanted to change, and just to show that that's probably got a pretty good selection of that, I'll change the hat to blue. And I beg your pardon. What I have to do there is I'll just undo that. So I'll get rid of that area there. Now what I've got selected here is the white, of course, and then I need to invert the selection. So I'll go up to Select, Inverse, and now if I do what I just did before, silly me, and change that to more of a blue color, you can see the shades on the boots then become blue as well. So because the boots are still selected as well. But I'll undo that too, and so that's using the Magic Wand tool. We did already look at using the Quick Selection tool, so let's have another look at that. And this one I can just adjust the size of the brush a little bit and then just click and drag quickly, and you can see how rapidly that's made a selection of the hat. Let's see what that does if I now change that hat to blue again. And you can see already that's a pretty good selection there. There are little bits that I might want to fix up with the Refine Edge tool, but nevertheless it might accomplish what I want to do. Okay, so I'll just undo that again, and I'm using Control-Alt-Z to undo there, by the way, and it would be Command-Option-Z on the Mac. Okay, so the other thing that I was showing more recently was how to use the pen tool to make a selection. So I'll quickly do that too. And the pen tool is particularly good for this kind of an image where it's pretty clear cut kind of image. So I can click, and if I just do a couple of clicks, it makes a straight line. If I click and drag, it makes what they call a Bezier curve. And while it may look like I'm doing this fairly easily, it takes a little bit of experience to do this. And the fewer points you put in there, the better. So if I click up here and drag, it's better than putting a whole bunch of points in. And then click again over here, and drag again here. And I can adjust these handles after the event, so I can go back. I'm holding down the command key there just to bring the handle up a little bit to change that curve. And now I can click and drag down here and put a point in there, click and drag down here, and maybe need to move that handle up there and put a point there, and then another drag there, point there, and you can see how quickly this is coming together now. And that path is one of the benefits of creating a path like this is it makes a very small addition to your original file that you can retain in there, and so you can actually retain it in your file. I can undo any time I want here just to fix things up. I'm just kind of quickening up here a bit because I don't want to make the video too long, and when I get to the end of the path, I can then, when I notice the cursor change here, there's a little circle appears beside the pen, and that indicates that I'm closing that path. And now all the points disappear on the path. If I want to access them again, hold down a command key, click on the path, and I can get at the little handles individually there and adjust them around, adjust the points as well. So I could put this point up here if I wanted to. And when I've got that path made, it creates a new work path in the path thing, but I need to double click it to save it if I want to retain it. And then when I've got that, if I click on this this icon down the bottom, I'll just pull this off here so we can see better. That icon, if I mouse over it, says load path as a selection, and I can make a selection which is just the same as any other selection I've made. Once I'm just trying to get this path back in here. There we go. So I'll go back to my layers now, and now I can then, obviously I've done that kind of odd thing there with the squint path, but now if I do this business here, you can see that it is rather a good selection other than the bit I marked up there. So that's another way. There's another way yet. I'll try and quicken this up a bit, so I'll just go undo that coloring, deselect again, and the other way would be to create a mask here. So if I'll just pull this layers panel off here so you can see better. If I create a mask by holding my mouse over this icon here, add a mask, I'll put that back again so we don't get that in the way now. And now just use my paintbrush to paint the mask. So I've got a paintbrush here, and if I've got the mask selected, if I've got that selected, I get my normal color. So if I, for example, hold down my Alt key and click on the hat, it'll pick up the yellow. But as soon as I select the mask, the only choices I've got are black and white. So if I paint with black, what it does is it creates a hole in to show things through, to let things show through. So I'll just make the brush bigger here and start painting, and you can see there's the transparency underneath. Just to make that clearer, I'll make another layer here. I'll drag that layer underneath. I'll fill it with a foreground color of green. So I'll just go Shift F5, fill with the foreground color, and you can see that green now to appear through the mask. And so as I've just switched back to the mask again on the top layer, and as I paint with the black, it allows the underlying layer to show through, so you can see that that's actually masking that. If I want to do fine work, I can bring the size of the brush down and then click very fine clicks around. This gives a nice soft edge if you're using the right brush too. So this is a particularly good way most of the time for doing masks where it isn't necessarily a hard edge like this is. So this is a hard edge that can stand that kind of geometric thing we were doing before with the pen tool, but this one, you can see there how quickly I'm going around here. I'm holding down the shift key in between clicks here, and to add to that, and then once I get the area I want, I can get that lasso tool again, hold down the Alt key, click around here, and very quickly the video's starting to play up a bit, unfortunately. Very quickly click around here, and I'll just close this up here, and when I've got a selection, if I paint black in there, I'm just going to go Shift F5, fill it with the foreground color, and you can see that's added to the mask now. So there's a number of ways of making selections that gives you the enormous power of Photoshop with masks. Interestingly though, had I made the selection with the pen tool, I'll just undo this. I'll get rid of this mask altogether here, so I'll delete that layer mask. And if I go back to my pen tool now, my path, load the path, and I'll load it as a selection, and go back to my layers again, and do that same thing that I did before, where I just click on the mask here. You can see that creates a mask just by using whatever the selection is. So hopefully that makes some sense to you. It may seem a little complicated, but do play with it and you'll very quickly find how intuitive it starts to become as you start to use it. So that'll do for that one.